And for the fourth time, welcome back to the In the Hunt podcast. My name is Jake Mendel, and I'm joined by, as always, usually joined by Christopher Cochran. How we doing, man?
Thank you for the as always, the usually. Is this because of my AWOL episode a couple weeks ago, and now that since I'm on a 2-game appearance streak now that I'm more consistent.
Your biography says that you can't be trusted, so you gotta go through a year. You gotta
character issues. I got character issues.
As of right now, you have character issues. It takes you about 2 years to get off that. I'd start donating to charities now because that's the first step. But
okay.
Topher, today's a pretty big day for me in Massachusetts. It hit 100 degrees for the first time this year. What do you have to say to that? Living in Florida.
Your pretty big day is my normal day. Where it's there are times where I go in my car and it says 101.
No, it's not saying 101. It's saying LOL. The weather is laughing.
Yeah.
Like, why would you go outside in this? You're an idiot.
Yeah, and so this is the thing. So I was actually discussing about mowing the grass, and I was thinking like, wait a minute, if I go and mow the lawn at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, I might die. Right. I literally might die on the grass. While if I mow it right now at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, there's a chance I survive.
Exactly.
As you can tell, it's really we're speaking in chances and possibilities, not like definite. So I could die regardless. The chances of me dying, or at least from dying from heat exhaustion, aren't as high at this time of day because South Florida is a giant humid pool of heat.
Not to be related with wait. Is it the same thing as the Miami Heat? Do they just put the weather on the basketball court? Is that what happens?
Maybe. You're on to something, so we'll have to we'll have to investigate it.
Could be. So
outside the lines.
Get the big guys. Get Bob Lee on the phone so we can.
Oh, he's ready to go right now. He's ready to go.
See, I love Bob Lee just for the fact, I've never been a huge outside the line guy, especially growing up, because I'd always be like, I want my highlights. I want to watch dunks. I want to watch touchdowns. So when Bob Lee would come on like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you'd be like, all right, it's time for a nap. And his voice would just be the perfect thing. It didn't matter what he was talking about. Bob Lee, wicked calm. You're like, all right, time to go to bed. There's no one dunking on each other for 30 minutes, so I'm not worried about this show.
Perfect catnap voice.
It really is. That's why
he's the perfect catnap.
That is spot on.
Perfect catnap. It's also good for a catnap. Dolphins football at times.
Oh.
And don't you have a topic that you want to discuss with the listeners, me, and possibly our guest that we have coming on later on?
Uh-oh. Was that a little foreshadowing I heard? But,
little tease.
Whoa. But when we had Eric on last week, and he was mentioning that game against the Panthers, where it just blew his mind that the 4th and 10 they completed the pass to C. Smith and the Panthers ended up winning the game 19-16 or something like that. And my response was like, wow, there are so many of these games. I'm like numb to half. I don't even know what's going on. And lo and behold, on Reddit today, you send me this link. Name the game the Dolphins lost that you remember being the angriest after. And I started scrolling through this list, and I'm like, oh, like, that didn't bother me, just because, like, you mentioned before the show, we're getting kind of numb to this stuff. It's not that surprising, and it's a little scary.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these have it, like the Packers, the Lions, the Broncos. These are the 2014 games. So there are a lot of games, and, like I said, I was thinking about it, and at a certain point, these games, you get so numb to them that you're just expecting that result. And that's what makes the Dolphins, like I keep going back to it, so it's going to get annoying eventually. But that's what makes them like in the hunt, is because these games where you just get so pissed off at them that you're used to it. You're used to it. So Jake, do you have any, I have like 2 or 3 games right now off the top of my head that got me legitimately angry at the moment, and then you're still like, I'm not shocked. So what are your games?
The one that I really wasn't, I won't say angry, but that Broncos game, I was actually pretty hyped up after, because lo and behold, leave it to a Dolphin fan to get excited when you lose. But, watching Tannehill go back and forth with Peyton was pretty awesome that year. And, like, you could sit there and defend him. And because that game, that was, like, peak Tannehill. You're, like, ready to, sign him long-term. Doesn't matter how many injuries there are. You're ready to, like, ride off into the night. But that Lions game in 2014, I remember it was, like, there was a lot of it was on Fox, and there was a huge thing about how the Dolphins, like, this was the year they're coming together. They have this picture of like Ryan Tannehill smiling in the camera, looking like he's like running for president, and you're just like, yeah, this is the game. Lions, they can't score, and they just dominated the Dolphins. That was one where like it just ripped my heart out. That was the end of the 2014 season for me.
Well, with the Broncos game, the offense was peak, like it was awesome. Like that's what you wanted. But it was the defense. And I remember it was that period, like there was a 3 or 4 game stretch where the Dolphins' run defense was awesome. Yep. It was, it was legit. Like I think it had like Randy Starks on that line still. And that defensive line was amazing. And then they get gashed on the ground. C.J. Anderson just went ballistic that game. And, they came back in the second half and won. And then with the Stafford game, I think that was the game, the Lions game, that's the game that Brandon Albert got hurt. Yeah. Which the offensive line was really good at the time. It was really good at the time. And next thing you know, Albert gets hurt, blows his knee out. And they were terrible. I think that was Deion Jordan was the one guarding that. He was actually going in pass coverage. And then Stafford came out of nowhere and just threw this crazy sidearm touchdown.
Oh, yep.
To end the game. So those 2 games, for me, it was in 2015 against the Jaguars. And because they were playing terrible the entire time, and they were still in the game. And this is when the Jaguars were the Jaguars. Like, they were a routine at top 5 team, top 5 pick. And we had Olivier Vernon at that time. And it's right there for him. And next thing you know, they go ahead and he got the sack, but it was also like unnecessary roughness.
Yeah, he went right to the face, like right to the face. It's like there's some questionable ones, and then there's one where you don't care. He wasn't caring.
And then so that the funny thing is with that season in 2015, that was classic like Dolphins in the hunt. Because they went to England and lost to the Jets 27-14, came back with Dan Campbell. We all had the Man Campbell crush going on.
That was so much fun for 3 weeks. I was at that Houston Texans game, I got bored during that game because the Dolphins were dominating. I remember that weekend was weekend.
So go ahead. Yeah, they won the game against Washington. Yep. They lost to the Jags the week after. They got completely pounded by the Bills. In Miami. Yeah, that was in Miami. And then they lost to the Jets in England. They came back and beat Tennessee and Houston the following weeks. So they were 3-3. Mm-hmm. They went ahead and lost to the New England Patriots that Thursday. It was a Thursday night game. I think it was the game that Cam Wake tore his Achilles, right?
Yeah, I remember where I was when that happened.
They lost to the Bills, and this is the kicker right here. So it's going status quo right now. They beat the Eagles in Philadelphia.
Tell me the score of that
on the road.
Can you tell me the score?
20-19. 20-19. Oh. And then the Romo game was the next week where Romo was out.
Yeah.
And then they pull off these random games where they go ahead and beat the Ravens 15-13 because Joe Flacco was out for the year. And so yes, those are those games. And they didn't win a single game. Yeah. They lost to the Colts. These are these games, man. And
I remember that Colts game. I think it was 2013, and it was kind of like a back and forth. Tannehill and Luck were having a really good game, and there was a play Deion Jordan broke through. He had a chance to sack Luck, but instead he just pushed him, and Luck had to throw it.
Yes, and he ran out, and the whole thing was why didn't you tackle him?
Yep.
I think Lamar Miller, they won that game. Lamar Miller had a big game. Charles Clay had a big game. I think they won that game. They're actually been pretty successful against the Colts with Andrew Luck at starting quarterback. But yeah, there's so many of these games where you're just so used to it that
you forget about it. You forget just how bothered you were at the time.
Yeah, and then most recently, I would probably say the Seahawks game, where they and mainly because of the Kenny Stills drop.
Yep.
Because that you felt like that was the game where they could have won it, and they came back, and Seattle actually came back at the end and won, last minute play. And so it was that game where you're that was the last one right there, was that got me legit annoyed at it, and because it was just typical Dolphins fashion, oh, here comes a touchdown,
right,
and bam, they scored, right, and you weren't shocked anymore. But yeah, man, it's all one big blur. But when you look at the schedule, I went back to 2015, right? 2015 game. That was the first game. That was the first year we had Sue, correct?
Yes.
So that defensive line was Cam Wake, Sue, Olivier Vernon.
Yep.
Holy crap, that defensive line.
Earl Mitchell, I think, was there.
Yeah. Oh, that's another signing where you got pumped up for because he was like a penetrating defensive tackle. And
he was like terrible. A 3-4 nose. Yep.
From Houston.
That was a scheme guy. That was a guy where we said that he'd be better.
Scheme guy. And it's always defensive lineman. It's always a defensive lineman scheme guy where you're like, it was total scheme.
Oh my
total God. Scheme guy. It's never the secondary. It's always a lineman or a defensive end.
I'm just gonna start bringing up for more, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it, but the Minka stopper was on the Pick Six CBS podcast the other day, and so what I did was I decided to look at the other names who also had the name Gronk stopper, at other players that had the name Gronk stopper. I'm not gonna say a single one of them that was used used with this hashtag, but it wasn't good. Don't look it up. And I swear to God, if Minka's anything what these other guys that were labeled Gronk stoppers were, we're screwed for like the next 3 years. We are absolutely screwed.
Yeah, well, the Dolphins social media team has done an amazing job showing you highlights of the rookies.
Oh my God, that one-handed catch by just.
Oh my God, we're getting Travis Kelce, right? Like Mike Gesicki is Travis Kelce.
A healthy.
Like we could say that, right? Like, are we knee jerking based off a 1.5-minute video in a bubble?
Dude, is there anything wrong with this knee jerking? I think that's the better question.
No, because it's Dolphins football, so you're used to it. Like this is the time to like get on the hype train, all aboard. Everybody come on now. Everybody get on the hype train now, because they tease you with these 1-minute videos.
Yep.
And we've never seen them before. Like all we got of our tight ends in the past was Michael Egnew getting yelled at Hard Knocks, and Julius Thomas being traded. We're getting Julius Thomas for like a 7th-round pick, and signing Jordan Cameron. End of the story is it never worked out.
Breaking news! If you didn't know it,
Yeah, shocker. It's shocker. None of those signings that we all got excited for, or tried to spin zone. We tried to spin them. Julius Thomas was ultimate spin zone candidate. By the way.
Yeah, because Gase knows how to use them. So we got to retire that. Gase knows what he's doing, right? Well, no, I don't mean that, but like Gase has this Gase can't use his scheme as an excuse anymore. Or like we are with like Quinn, and like we tried to do with Mitchell. After last year with what we saw with like Julius Thomas, we can't give Gase the benefit of the doubt anymore, can we?
No, I mean, so that if he needs to, he can have a guy have a great year. Like he could design it, like Jarvis Landry, for example.
Yep.
His year wasn't good overall, but he did get his touchdowns, and for me that was his. That's the one thing that annoyed me with him is he wasn't scoring, so he got these touchdowns because he was ultimate scheme candidate for it, and he got them. But otherwise, his production was pretty lackluster.
Right.
And so. But ultimately, and this is what I always go back with, it just comes down to talent. Like, how good are you? And if you're Julius Thomas, you can't be overweight and lazy and slow.
And still think you'll be able to, yeah,
and still think that you could do what you did in Denver, because that was the argument, right?
Right.
It was like, oh, look what he did in Denver, when a lot of Dolphins fans were like, no, look what he did with Peyton Manning.
Exactly.
Because he had Demaryius Thomas. Oh, that's probably, I would say, Adam Gase's weakness is his weakness was being on that staff with Peyton Manning when Peyton Manning went ballistic that year, because that's kind of like well, look, he did all this stuff with Peyton Manning.
Right. But I mean, I think we can't overlook how impressive 2016 was. Last year was a pretty big letdown. I mean, when we're talking about games that we let go, I mean, last year there were a couple just brutal ones like the Bucks, but last year I think we're just going to try to sweep under the rug, and never happened. But so that jersey I have is just like fake news, I guess. But I was thinking, spur of the moment, I think we put too much confidence in ourselves of what we're able to do and what we're able to accomplish, because we never posted any polls for last week's show, which is probably 100% my fault. 100% my fault.
Team effort. It was a team effort. We came out lackluster. We finished good. but just didn't execute in the second half.
Exactly.
And so we just got to regroup. We got to watch the film, watch the tape, and and just read the scouting report next time. And our scouting report is we just won't do a poll, even though we say we will.
So I'm thinking, how about the Ring of Hunt? The Ring of Hunt, yes.
Yes, just keep going. Keep going. It's all part of it.
Let's retire it for a couple weeks. Let's get our boundaries. Let's get back. I can't even talk. That's how shook I am. Let's get back to square one. Let's pound this out. Phrase.
What are our fundamentals?
We gotta start with bounce pass.
Our identity. What's our identity?
You tell me.
It's just do your job. We got to do our job.
We got to start. First, we got to know our job before we can do our job. And speaking of people who are really good at their job, another good member on Dolphins Twitter. You're always gonna get quality information from them, and it's not necessarily the breaking news. It's gonna be the stuff that makes you think quite a bit. It's Dolphins Wire Antwan Staley, and holy shit, Antwan, you joined, and LeBron James is a member of the Lakers. What's going on?
I know. It just happened to have me on at the same time. Breaking news. It's crazy. He's going to the Lakers. No, I wasn't surprised. I'm surprised it happened this soon. I would have thought it would happen in a couple of days from now, because they were talks that he was talking to Philadelphia too. But right. Yeah, I didn't think it happened right on July 1st.
A little more surprising than this was Paul George. I think what I heard was a couple of people say was that Paul George was kind of the first domino. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I think LeBron probably had his mind made up for a while. He was going to go to the Lakers, and then everybody follows what LeBron has to do, not necessarily what everybody else does. He's the domino. He sets the trend, and then everybody else just kind of follows him.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong whatsoever.
I mean, the thing that kind of stands out to me is the deal was 4 years long. The last time he signed a deal that long was with the Heat.
Yeah.
There was some commitment, and then he just kind of went 1-1 with a player option ever since. And so now it's legit a 4-year deal for $154 million. He's making $35 million the first year, and then on the final year he's making $41 million with a trade clause, and that was from Bobby Marks of ESPN.
Yeah, I guess because he wanted to hold Cleveland hostage. I always said that with the 1-year contracts, because he always had them kind of walking on eggshells, thinking that he might leave.
Right. And
this situation is, I'm a little surprised too. I guess he really liked what Magic Johnson and that whole group is selling them, so he feels committed and settled that he can, I guess, end his career in LA.
Or he's comfortable. Yeah, exactly. So now, it's pretty confident he's going to retire as a Laker.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on how he is, retire as a Laker, or maybe come back from 1 year and retire as a Cat. Who knows what he's going to retire at?
I mean, I would imagine maybe 38 years old. I mean, it's hard to imagine. I guess if anybody could do it, he could play when he was 40, but I don't know how long he would want to play, especially if he's not playing at the level he's accustomed to playing with.
Right. Now, let me ask you this, guys. Do you think there's someone else coming along with him now? Do you think it's going to be Boogie, or is it going to be the trade that ultimately where Kawhi ends up in LA? Because as of right now, it doesn't really make sense. I get it's LA, but basketball-wise, they're still the third best team in the conference, right?
Boogie did say, LeBron did say in November last year that Boogie was the best big man in the NBA. But I mean that was before the injuries. So I don't know if LeBron's a smart guy. I mean, that goes without saying, and I don't think he's really going to sit there and try to trust a guy trying to bounce back from an injury maybe in a year or so. And the Kawhi thing, I think the Spurs are really starting to ask for too much. I think the biggest piece that's going to be is Lonzo Ball staying on the Lakers. I think that's where we got to start our questioning.
Yeah. He was the number 2 pick last year and he got hurt. So who knows? I mean, the only issue is his dad, but I don't know if that's a legit thing, or is that just Twitter people just pissed off at him or annoyed at him.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that would work out too with Ball and then LeBron and LeVar on the same page. It's a lot of things that's going to go into it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see how this all works out as well.
Oh, for sure. But to kind of dive back into the Dolphin talk, how long have you been covering the Dolphins?
Since 2013.
Okay, so you got a almost 2 Philbin years, a little Dan Campbell, and some Adam Gase. Who would give you the best answers to questions in the locker room out of those three coaches?
It would be Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell was really honest. I guess because he really had nothing to lose. He was playing with house money at that point. So
Right.
he was such a young guy at that point. He had never been a head coach before, and he'd never been an offensive coordinator or assistant. He was really he was just a tight end coach getting elevated to a head coach that quickly. So he was just getting brutally honest answers. So I really like Dan Campbell. He was just young at the time and didn't have a lot of experience.
When I went to Miami, I was there in 2014 when Campbell's the coach against the Texans, and first play of the game was a slant pass to Rashard Matthews that went 60 yards, and the Dolphins at halftime had more points than the Texans had yards, I believe, and the place was like really going wild. What's like one game you've been at and you couldn't just believe the stuff that was happening on the field?
Just one. Some of the Patriot games come to mind. I remember the one last year where you never know exactly what Dolphins team you're gonna get, but whenever they play the Patriots, they tend to play their best game. So, and nothing coming into that game, nothing just stood out that you couldn't believe what you were seeing. And also the Pittsburgh game in 2016. Remember they started out the season
That was awesome.
So poorly, and then people were thinking the Dolphins were one of the worst teams in football, and then they go out and beat the Steelers. So yeah, I think that game they really set the trend for the whole rest of the season and got them all going on a run.
In terms of 2 to 3 weeks of Dolphins football, that was so entertaining because the guy was just oozing machismo, and then everything kind of hit him all at once against New England.
Yeah, it did.
It was awesome watching it.
Yeah,
that was typical Dolphin football. You were pumped up over it. And next thing you know, they come against New England and get throttled. Yeah, you're like, oh, that ended right there.
I think he was a breath of fresh air coming from Joe Philbin, who was just kind of like a robot.
Classic rebound. He was a rebound.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily he wasn't a coach that people wanted to fight for. That's really the main thing. When Dan Campbell came in, they wanted to play hard for him. He was so young. They didn't do anything differently, but he just had a new energy about him. And I think that really got him over not only the Texans game, the Titans game, the first game after Philbin got fired.
That was awesome.
Which propelled them to those 2 wins. And then, like you said, they came back to earth against New England. And then, the rest of the season, it was they were who they were. They were just a 6-10 team. But those 2 games, they really gave a lot of energy, especially considering the coaching change.
The last article you wrote to kind of transition to like the current team, you talk a lot about how the Dolphins secondary has a boatload of potential. What do you see that's so interesting about this group? There's Minkah Fitzpatrick, the first-round pick. Howard against the Patriots, like you just mentioned, was awesome. Lippett's coming back. What's the star of this group to you?
Well, I don't know if I have seen a group that was so young together like this in any team. It's rare to have this so much youth in one particular group for any team, more or less the secondary. And I feel like it has a lot of potential. I think Xavier Howard, he struggled the first part of the season last year. He really turned it on in December with the back-to-back 2 interception games. You got Tony Lippett coming back, who led the Dolphins in interceptions in 2016. You got Cordrea Tankersley, who was inactive the first 2 games of the year and then ended up becoming a starter after parted ways with Byron Maxwell and benched him and then parted ways. You also got Bobby McCain, who you just signed to a nice contract, and I think is one of the more underrated players in the league, especially at the slot position. And then you like you say, you add in Minkah Fitzpatrick, who can do a lot of different things, is very versatile, and Rashad Jones, who I think is one of the better safeties in football. So, yeah, I think you have a lot of versatility there, a lot of things you could do, and a lot of different ways you can use a lot of the players that you had. And also, you got players like Maurice Smith and Torrey Mattire as well, who were players that wasn't even drafted, but they ended up making the team. So you got a good situation there as far as depth in the secondary.
Right, there is some flash there.
I completely forgot about Byron Maxwell.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
I couldn't believe I completely forgot that he was on the team because it was still like a year ago, right? As of a year, like last year was his last year with the team.
Yes, you remember he got benched and then they later released him. Yeah.
Oh, he's gotten benched so many times as a Dolphin. within like in his career. But what are some things when you're in the locker room, like who hangs out with who? By positions? Is it they hang out with their positions first and then they leave together, or is it like what does that work? Because a lot of fans don't know this stuff, so that's kind of what I'm interested in is who hangs out with who.
Well, now it's set up. It wasn't always like this since I covered the team, but now it's set up for the standpoint that most of the positions are with each other. The linebackers are with each other. The DNs are next to each other. Wide receivers, quarterbacks are kind of in the middle of all of it because there's so little of them. And kickers the same thing. Kicker and punters the same thing. They're kind of in the midst of the defensive players. So yeah, it really goes by position. They all kind of together. The tight ends and the running backs are kind of in the same area. I remember there's been so much change with the Dolphins recently that I don't know how the locker room is going to be this upcoming season. But you had Damian Williams, who was here for a few years. He was one of the most loudest players in the locker room, and they had a good time when he was definitely in there causing up trouble.
Do you think? I remember. It was Sue's second season. I forgot, one of the writers painted this huge picture how in the locker room it's Sue's locker, Wake's locker, and they get like six lockers just to these two guys. Do you think that maybe I know Sue was a great player, but do you think getting rid of Sue and kind of having more of that like fun in the locker room, like people hanging out wherever, could have a positive impact on the type of chemistry we see on the team moving forward?
Well, they like Sue. I think Sue gets a bad rap because he's not a, talkative guy. But the
Mm-hmm.
players really liked him. They really like playing with Sue, and he really mentored a lot of players. I actually liked Sue talking to him last year as opposed to his first few years with the Dolphins. And he got better and better each year. But yeah, the teammates really liked him, and they do miss him. I think going talking about his effect on the field, I feel like now the players feel like they have to kind of step up because now instead of Sue playing 85% of the downs like he did last year, which is unheard of for a defensive tackle, you're going to be spread out. You're going to be spread apart among 4 or 5 different guys, and also you add in William Hayes, who can also play deep tackle as well. So I feel like they all feel like they have to kind of you know step up and do their thing this year, and they'll have more of a chance to do that.
How much do you take into account for like OTAs? Because the
Zero.
Dolphins zero, right? So yeah, because like we were discussing earlier, we're watching the 1.5 minute clip of Mike Gesicki and Mika Fitzpatrick just making plays, and you're getting excited over it, and at the end, like yeah, it's just OTAs, so.
Yeah, the only thing I really took away from it was seeing how Ryan Tannehill was moving. You don't know how he's going to play. You don't know how the offense is going to perform out there on the field until pass come on. You really don't know. But the only thing I took away from it that we got a chance to see Ryan Tannehill. He looked athletic as he did prior to his injury, and Raekwon McMillan, the same type of thing, coming off a knee injury as well. Want to see how he how to react on the field, and he looked like the same player he was before he got hurt, and looked like he's like a veteran out there. And that's rare to talk about that with somebody that's 22 years old.
Who was Raekwon? There was articles written about how Raekwon and Tannehill spent a lot of time together. Who is Raekwon like picking the brain from? Is he does he talk with Kiko a lot? Is he more with the coaches? Like who is he learning from? Especially.
Yeah, it would be Kiko. But yeah, you talk about Stephon Anthony is another person he leaned up on. Norris Timmons was there last year, so he talked with him as well. But yeah, as far as rehabbing, it was Tannehill, it was McMillan, it was also Isaiah Ford, who was their 7th round pick last year as well. Remember, he suffered an injury as well, and Tony Lippett was there a little bit as well. But it was really mostly Ford, Tannehill, and McMillan. They're just doing that. So yeah, they were rehabbing together, pushing each other throughout the process, and yeah, they all back now, and it's going to be fun to see them all on the field. I'm particularly curious to see Isaiah Ford because a lot of people thought he had a lot of potential coming in last year, but he ended up suffering that injury in training camp, and he wasn't able to get on the field at all.
So what's it like seeing Frank Gore? From here. So what is there a difference between having him and say like Damian Williams in the locker room?
Um, well, I don't know yet. I'm sure, as far as veteran leadership, he
Yeah.
will be. I know a lot of players are leaning up on him, asking him questions. You got somebody coming in that's been around one of the greatest running backs of all time. As far as one of the leading rushers in NFL history. So yeah, I think a lot of players feel like they need to lean up on him. I know Caleb Balaj has said he was one of his favorite running backs as well, along with Ronnie Brown, which is a lot of people compare him to Ronnie Brown. But yeah, I think a lot of players, including Kenyon Drake, can really kind of pick Frank Gore's brain and just kind of learn as much as they can from him for a year that he's here.
You mentioned how everyone was really excited for Isaiah Ford, and everyone was saying this is a steal in the seventh round, this is a steal in the seventh round, and it was kind of okay to let Jarvis walk, but then one of the signings everyone has questioned a little bit was Albert Wilson. So what was your mindset when you kind of saw that happen?
I feel like they were want to add some more speed to the team, and look, they wanted to keep Jarvis Landry. I know a lot of people. It's a lot of different things out there, but the fact of the matter is, he just priced himself out. They didn't have the money to spend, at least initially, in free agency, and once they did get that money, they had to. The Dolphins are a 6-10 team last year. They really can't. You can't justify. Or you guess you could, but it's hard to justify spending that much money on a receiver when he doesn't have. I mean, Landry has some impact on the team, but you still a team. The Dolphins still finished 6-10. So
Right.
how much impact did he have? And then you're going to pay him 13, $14 million. So the Dolphins thought it'd be best to let him go. So that was what their thinking was, and they feel like they can still get that production. You add in Wilson, add Amendola, and you're also able to get some tight end help with Gesicki and Durham Smites as well. So they feel like just a complementary of guys, just committee of guys can help replace his production.
Yeah, I think the thing with Albert Wilson is like you get excited seeing him on the highlights from Kansas City, but like, I mean, is like this is the thing with like this is what annoys me about the Dolphins is they'll go ahead and sign these players and it's pitched and everything is described as like, oh, he's gonna be interchangeable. They're gonna have him play all over the field. They're gonna have him do punt return, and next thing you know, they just pigeonhole him into one thing: slot receiver. And it's like that it was like that with Jarvis Landry too, where it was he's lining up inside outside, and then bam, he comes in here as inside, but in the end like it just gets aggravating because you know what he can do, and now like I would not shock me if he's just stuck doing in slot stuff.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, especially when Philbin was there. I feel like Philbin just kind of pigeonholed him into that one particular thing, but he still ended up becoming the team's leading receiver. That's funny how that happened, but yeah, I feel like with Gates at least, Gates found him out on the outside a little bit. They didn't necessarily have him in the slot exclusively. He had different people in there. Actually, Kenny Stills was in the slot as well. He's one of the outside of Landry, one of the better slot players that they had last year, and ended up scoring a number of touchdowns in that position. I think he's going to do that this year as well.
Damian Williams was a really good locker room guy. So was Sue. So who's going to be taking over? Who are the? I know it's only been OTAs, but do you have some sort of sense of who's going to step up as like the captains on the team?
You also lost Michael Thomas too, and Mike Pouncey. So yeah, you did. You lost some veteran players that were captains last year. So it's going to be interesting to see who definitely steps up and mans that role. I imagine Tannehill he'll be a captain. I know Kenny Stills was a captain last year. He's definitely one of the leaders in the locker room. So I know he'll take that role on again. You might see a Juwan James do that as well. He is the longest tenured offensive lineman now, so I can see him possibly taking on more of a leadership role there. I don't know how his future is with the Dolphins is gonna be, but I definitely think at least this upcoming year, he could take a leadership position there as well.
That's pretty surprising. I forgot about that. That he's the longest tenured. Wow.
To be honest with you, a lot of people don't understand what his market is out there. If the Dolphins had rescinded his offer, he would have got more money on the market from. I know it's a lot of. I can tell you definitely the Denver Broncos were interested in signing him and actually acquired about trading for him, but the Dolphins turned the deal down.
When you're in the press box on Football Sunday, who's the funniest Dolphins beat reporter?
I had to go with Leisure. Jason Leisure is pretty funny. he has a lot of dry humor. It's not
great.
like funny ha ha, but it's more like Larry David type of dry humor. Sometimes he can go over your head, but he is pretty
It's meant
funny.
for Dolphins. It's meant for Dolphins football.
It is.
What you want in your beat writer, if it's the Dolphins, is you want this dry, miserable humor, as opposed to taking everything super serious. And I mean, I've been in the press box before. Those hot dogs are amazing, right?
Yeah, their food is much better than what it used to be.
Okay, I remember it was just hot dogs and hot dogs, like chili hot dogs.
That's what it used to be. That's what it used to be.
With nachos.
Yeah, exactly.
And it looked like media. It's what you imagine the media is. It's just a bunch of dudes waiting in line for hot dogs that are just sitting on this frying pan or this like water stove.
That's what it used to be, but since they've redone the whole stadium, they've kind of upgraded the food things too. We still get hot dogs, but maybe like instead of every week, it'd be twice a year. So out of the 8 or out of the 10 games, if you count the preseason, we'll get them twice. So which is not, I can take that as well. It's more of a variety now as opposed to back then when I first started covering the team in 2013.
There's some thought put into it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad at least done that.
If you're gonna watch some brutal games, brutal games, you gotta eat good.
Yeah, I can't complain too much about it because I covered the games too, and there was a time they didn't feed us at all. So
wow.
So yeah, you give some kind of food, some kind of snack that I can have until after the game, and I'm good.
Journalists always get the short end of the stick, either way. But Antwan, it's been awesome talking to you, and we'd hope to have you back on right before the season. Maybe squeeze out some like hot takes from yours, something about the season as everyone's getting really excited.
All right, then I'm looking forward to coming back on, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Right, y'all take it easy.
Take care. We're a month into the season, Topher. One whole month. Well, no, 1 month into our life, I guess, because the season's all year round. So I mean, that's not what matters. But you know the rules. Google Podcasts, your iTunes Store, Podbean. Find us, Cochran.
Even YouTube, man. Even YouTube, for some crazy reason. That's the craziest thing is the YouTube part. Podbean, Google Play, iTunes, YouTube. Check us out. If anything, you'll just catch our annoying antics on Twitter. Jake, what's your handle, by the way? I keep forgetting.
Good old J Mendel 94. Very creative on my end. Very
yes. Creative. Mine is Cochran 108.
And
very creative. All right.
Remember, send us reviews because we will reflect on them on air, and we could really get in depth about those and have a lot of fun. But Topher, nothing's more fun than talking Dolphins with you.
Yes, so we're gonna post. We're gonna be up again this week, and then after that, we'll come back once a week, right?
Exactly. Alrighty, sir. Have a good night.